Part 4, working on locomotives other than equipment and the work of the wrecking crew. Section A, working on the locomotive. The carman does all the work on the locomotive that include the construction, repair, application, removal of the wooden cabs, the pilots, the pilot beams, the running boards, the headlight platforms. Carman applies all the locomotive and coupling apparatus that repairs, renews wooden sashes, doors, and floors. Finally, the shield cab, he cuts the fits and applies for the glass application for the cab sash doors, the assembly and applied to the side of the back curtain handles of the car with the carman makes all the sheet box and Colgate soda ash and box and clothes with the locker with a part of the cab and tender equipment. All the locomotive tender draft gear work on the wooden front tender frames is done by the carman. Repairing of the tenders. The carman jacks up the tank of the tender frame with the place in that trestle. When the tender work done with the shop having the overhead of the traveling of the crane, the carman fasten the tackle and then carbon does the lifting of the tank and lets it down into the trestle. If the trestle and the timber that are part of them are not properly placed, they are liable for that they will fall to the floor and perhaps seriously injure someone. The work on the repair of the tender frames is similar to work with the repairing of the sill structure and drafting rigging of the freight cars. The work on the tender care trucks is sometimes what is heavier. Other similar work with the freight cars is they usually grade average the weight of the capacity. The construction detail of the trucks generally sometimes what the same as the freight cars. The exemption of the most instrument since the high elliptical springs are unsteady with the coil spring nests on the most of the freight cars. Some of the large tenders that have equalizing trucks. Construction similar to the steel four-wheel passenger trucks exempt with the wheel of all the different parts of the grader may have many of them. Instead of having one of the large equalizer per side, that have two. The coil springs are set aside for both of them. Cab work. On the cab work, the carman must remove the cab from the locomotive of the job. They generally do their hurried in order to get out of the way of the other mechanics who are waiting to do their part of the work on the locomotive. Loosening up and the removal of the cab. The mechanic of the work must be the timing of the ladder on the locomotive running board on the scaffolding as he is removed the bolts and brace rods, the angle bars, etc. that hold cab of the locomotive. The cab is lifted from the machine shop crane and placed on the pushing car to transfer to the cab of the repair shop. Figure 41 shows the view of the tender repair yard. On the arrival of the cab of the repair shop, all the worn and decayed parts are removed and renewed by the car, and the cab is rarely exactly the same dimensions, even engines on the same class. He does considerably framing of the parts by hand. The number of the new wooden cabs are continually being constructed with the repair shop. The work is done with the blueprints in which are intended to show all the dimensions of the cab, and which dimensions are governed generally by the parts of the locomotive that the cab must be fitted around. Alright, figure 42 shows the end of the view of the locomotive cab, the side view of a locomotive view cab. Alright, very often there are pipes and other parts of the rear end of the locomotive within the blueprint, but the cab does not allow the layer out of the mechanical assembly. The cab must view their own discretion and knowledge. In these cases, as the cab emits the entire locomotive of the firebox of the back must be open sufficiently to allow the fireman to easily get out of the goal that the tender will see that the cab is constructed for the two complete side of the covered roof and the front end of the having only partial portion of the front end of the side of the boat must be equipped with a sash and gash for the front end of the gas bores through which the locomotive crew will walk out onto the running board. As much of the space that can be given with the strengthening of the cab structure is taken up with the locomotive. It will understand the reinforcement of the cab must be sufficient to enable the stand and rougher surfaces it gets. After the cab has been repaired, the carman must move the machine shop the direction of the crane operator, letting it dry properly in locomotive testing and securely. Very often, the engine carman is required to do rush jobs on the cab of the engines that are in the roundhouse and are to be called for the service. Very often, only a few minutes before the engine is required to be on the road, the carman is dispatched to apply the new window with glass. In these few minutes, he must bring his glass to the cab and cut it and fit it. Got it to fit and apply it and hold it in place with putty and hitting. Pilot work. The engine carman constructs the greater number of the new wooden pilots. The footboard, the pilot seals, uprights, and the mortise is bolted together. The flag gain bottom plates into the back of the pilot is bolted into the pilot beam. Being gained with these slats are bolted to each of the bolts are countersunk in the frame with these slats. The mechanic must make a countersunk and hold to make the bolt heads of the washer to fasten the countersunk bolts, and the mechanic may use the socket wrench. Lagging in the boiler. Beside the tender cab and the pilot with the work of the locomotive carman must also apply asbestos wood logging into the locomotive boiler. The wood asbestos serves as an insulation is in for the purpose of the retaining of the boiler and firebox. Heating the asbestos lag is different thickness for the different sections of the locomotive. The lagging of the firebox, the front end of the general is somewhat heavier than that of the rest of the engine. The firebox heats and intense for which is thick and insulation of the lagging locomotive crew would not able to sit in the cab. The considerable skill and experience is required to apply these sheets and blocks of the asbestos wire in such a manner that they will not shift under the sheet of the metal of the formed locomotive. The jackets, all cracks and seams must be filled in with asbestos mortar, in particular care of the necessary to fit in closely around all the valves, pipes, and the project of the wet boiler surface. Hazards and working conditions. The work of the carman and working of the tender frames of the trucks has to have some same attendant as the similar work of the freight car. The work sometimes is done on the outside, sometimes the shop is roof. The ground around the tender frame is sometimes loaded with water, which is mainly be used for the testing of the tanking of the leakage, making and the running of the repairs of the locomotive under the seam. Often pilot and footboard work of the measure is work of the mechanic is obliged to crawl under the pilot in front end where he is in danger and being scalded, exhausted, steam, and being crushed. In this case, someone should start the locomotive. The locomotive of the carman must have knowledge and safety of plans, regulations governing the tender locomotive drawbars, uncoupling mechanism, footboard, until steps, handholds, and assigned to take the care of the running roundhouse repairs who works in the supervisor of various roundhouse foremen. Where the discovered existence defects, make note of it and place the note in the box where the carman finds it and goes to the engine and makes the necessary repairs. The work of the carman assigned to the roundhouse repairs could be described as being one rush job from another. Section B, the work of the carman engaged in the building of the repairing of the motor cars, velocipedes, stations, and warehouse trucks, etc. The purpose of the tracking inspection, the quickly delivery of the repair parts, signal interlocking automatic switch equipment must be with the railroad have a number of light or 3 or 4 wheel cars propelled by the gas engine. The motors have from 1 to 4 cylinders according to the size of the weight of the car. Some of the railroads have the motor cars with electrically driven. The section hand the track repair forces. There's some of the small car sometimes are somewhat similar in the size of the appearance of the motor car, but they bring with and their work from one job to another in different ends of the points in this section. These cars are called hand cars and are propelled with the main power through the medium rods and gears, which operate the same principle that the child's toys called the Irish mail car. Figure 44 shows the Buddha hand car. Every railroad station there is one or more trucks that can carry the mail bags, package, and small freight express shipments to and from the trains in the station. They usually are about the same height of the rail car floor, and in order to expedite the unloading of the shipment, there's generally the rear forward wheels are made with a greater variety of the shapes and design. A freight house and its shops at the station, commonly 2-wheel warehouses, are used to carry all the kinds of material and parts of the equipment. Some of the trucks are metal, and others are part metal and wood, and some of the wooden wheels are other than metals. Some have rubber tire wheels. Most update the passenger shaft. Some of the 2-wheel devices are straight handled attached to use to carry heavy hydraulic jacks. All of the above equipment is similar to the equipment is repaired but built by the carman. The men assigned with the class for the work are generally men and who have been in service for a great many years and who have through injury and rheumaticism because they're unable to work with efficient ladders and scaffolds. They are, however, usually very good mechanics, skillful in use of their tools. Alright, a motor car repair. The repairs of the gasoline engine of the motor cars are done by the machines of the carman, removing and comply with them. The cars, all of the gears and rods to operate with the adjustment of the carman requires the care of the mechanical knowledge to make them. Figure 45 shows the Buddha motor vehicle velocipede. The power transmission router at the proper length with the proper repair of the small journal bearings, the bearings of the equipment, repairs the expression of the glasswork, the sills, and the cross piece of the floor with other parts of the cars generally required repair for the renewal. All of the materials orderly generally framed of the car. By the framing we mean they required to do all the sawing with the planing, boring holes and cutting of the gains and tenons of the mortises. The carman orders and applied to the wheels of the axle of the equipment to press for the weeks of the wheels of the axle. The operation requires a good deal with the heavy sledging. After the wheels are applied, but they must be straightened and properly goured to the frame and around the level of the handle cars and sometimes very light material. By light means but the dimensions, wide thicknesses are small. The framework must be very strong and usually reinforced with light rod and iron rods drawn tight. The joining of these parts must be skillfully done in the poor joint and light work, but must be liable to fail with a poor joint and a large work. This is defect usually proportional and largely. The work on the equipment is done with, almost without any supervision, even every inspection completed with exemption. Expecting in the course of the work is paid with the piece of the work basis. The men must be assigned a class for the work, are generally old employees or skilled mechanics of the finished work, satisfactorily inspected for themselves. Alright, section C, the work of the working crew. Work of the wrecking crew. The wrecking crew generally is composed of the wrecking foreman, single man, the derrick engineer, from 4 to 8 carmen wreckers. The men all work in the shop. They either trade of the building, repairing the cars during the part of each of the regular work day that they are not called out on the wrecks. They are their duties and responsibilities do not, however, cease to close the regular working day because any type of the day, the night, or are subject to call. The member of the wrecking crew is requested to be ready for the work for the 24 hours of the day every day in that year. He must at all times be aware that he be notified in case of the war. In case of a wreck, he must live near the wrecking output station so that it is only a matter of minutes. But between the time he is called and arrival to duty, any time of the day and night he leaves his home, he must inform the roundhouse clerk of his whole station when he is going and supply the clerk and the call boy with a telephone number that he can be reached on in case of the call of duty. He also informs the clerk of the time they expect the return to his home. This requires the member of the wrecking crew to know the telephone number of the church, the dentist, doctor, lodger, grocer, etc., in order that he may supply the number of the calling station before visiting any of these places. The wrecking foreman is usually a man of long experience handling the wrecks. The experience is gained only by being the member of the wrecking crew. From the time he goes on the duty, he is complete authority of the wrecking outfit, his crew, and the engineer and fireman of the locomotive assigned to them the wreck. The single manager of the Carmen record of experience stands out with the derrick's engineer cabin, given with the signal for the operation of the derrick is also called with the foreman. The signal he gives the pulling a cord which rings the bell inside of the derrick cabin. The derrick's engineer generally is the licensed engineer. Most states require them to successfully pass an examination on the knowledge of the operation care of the steam boilers in order to get the license. Without, he would not be allowed to work. The derrick engineer fires his own boiler, watches his steam gauge, water glass, lubricates his machine, operates his crane, and accurately and immediately responds to each of the signal. Also works so that he may operate the crane intelligently. Carman record selected the work because of the exceptional mechanical skill and experience, the nerve, the strength, and ability, agility, and endurance of all which are required in the handle of the wreck. The weakness, observation, decisions are about absolute essentials, and so the wrecking crew must have the knowledge of the trains on their division, which will not have to do with any of the wrecking equipment of the crane boom extending over the track in which they were expected. Or the wrecking outfit generally consists of the steam wrecking, carrying tender car with the truck car, rail and tie car, tool car, sleeping and dining cars. Wrecking crews are varied weighing light lifting capacities are used throughout the country, the weighing of 150,000 pounds to 300,000 pounds, which prepared for the heaviest, and the lifting capacity varies from 50 to 160 tons. 150 to 160 tons, carrying of the 120 capacity generally usually operated with the steam-generated boiler built with the crane with the cabin around it. The cabin boom can be turned completely around. The gear swivel. The boom has two hoists, the main hoist, auxiliary hoist. The hoist can be operated so that it moves along with the boom. In the operation, the crane engineer has before him 10 levers, which are usually used separately with the conjunction one and other opposing lever on the throttle, the one with the reverse engine on the lever to the right to lower the boom, one of the lever to swing crane either right or left on the lever the operation lifting cables, one of the lever operation of the heavy cables on one handbrake for the big cable on one clutch lever, one brake lever, and large cable drum. This gives them 7 levers, clutches, and 3 is on the brake. Each crane has the following tackle attachments for use on the hoist: 160 transom beam, 2 linkages, special shackles, 2 45-ton transfer beam, 1 center clevises, 2 end clevises, 2 special shackles, 2 pin locomotive lift, 1 sling locomotive lift, 1 sling locomotive lift, 1 coupler yoke attachment, 1 link number 12, 2 chains number 32, and 1 yoke number 13. Link 1, yoke 1. End sill hook 2 for the steel underframe. End sill hook 2 for the wooden frame cars. Sill hook and side sill hook 4 for the steel underframes. 4 side hooks sill hook 4 for the wooden frame cars. Sling 4, sling 2, sling 2, sling 2. This shows all the different the pieces that we just went over. Figure 46 is the wrecking crane equipment by Carius Attached Company. A corner protecting casket, connecting link, and a truck sling axle lift. A truck sling archer bar, girder hook, or chain sling, a 3/4 inch chain sling of 1 inch, emergency cable socket 2, double wedge socket 1, fire door hook 1, coupler lift chain 2. Your truck car is usually a flat car with 12-inch sides. It carries the following materials: 2 80,000-pound capacity steel car trucks, 2 60,000 pounds capacity steel car trucks, 150 pieces of blocking, 25 oak wedges, 6 30 through 30-foot cables, 2 1.5-inch cable slings with a heavy links on each end, 4 1.5-inch cable chains with 2 30-inch long with rings at each end, 4 kegs, 4 keg track splices in cellar under the slung box, 30 pairs of angle bars, 40 keg track bolts. The rail and the tie car is also a flat car with low sides and carries the following material: 75 ties, 8 8.5 85-pound rails, 8 72-pound rails, and 12 66-pound rails. The dining and sleeping car carries the following equipment: 10 bunks, 10 mattresses, complete setup for the cooking of the utensils, 1 kitchen range, 1 ice block, 1 stretcher complete with the blankets, pillows, etc. Complete set of porcelain dishes. Tool car carried a variety of the tools, equipment, and material would be length with exhibited considerably the list. The equipment includes the following: 10 jacks, 270 feet of rope of various sizes, tackled in the snatch blocks, 26 switch chains, emergency coupler and knuckles, 2 wheelbarrows, fire extinguisher, torch, lanterns, air hose, bolt, brass wedges, rollers, shovels, picks, sledges, chisels, tarpaulins, grain sacks, oil, first aid chests, a set of Carmen's tools, and a silicone cutting apparatus. The tender car carries the chain and cable car replacers in wood and water when necessary. Duties on route. On reporting the duty when called with the wrecking, the generally fine with the locomotive that is hauled for them is already steamed up and attached with the wrecking train. After the crew have all reported the wrecking, foreman ordered for the engineer of the locomotive to proceed with the wrecking, telling them, if necessary, as the rate of the speed of the train is going, it may be the 10 minutes ride to the wreck, and it may be either other end of the division, probably 100 mile distance. On one way of the wrecking, the derrick engineer fires his boiler and lubricates his machine. The wrecking foreman generally has found the nature of the wrecking, and while on the main, he assigns the other members of the crew to task getting of the material and appliance that needs to go in order to quickly obtain when called for. 47 shows the passenger train wreck. At the wreck, rail wrecks condition attending with the endless of the variety of passenger train, cattle trains, freight trains of all kinds. Some carry explosives. Wrecks are caused by the collision or derailment, and sometimes attended by the fire. Cars and locomotives have been found derailed, upset in any of the foot of the embankment that have enrolled in mountainous territory, and sometimes it's necessary to build an emergency track in order to crane with reaching the distance of some of the wrecked equipment. The incline of the emergency track may also be great as to prevent the crane from lifting any weight and maintaining its position. In the event of the wrecking, crane must build that level of the portion of the track in which the crane stands. 48 is a long reach. The first duty. First thing is on arrival is to extricate any person who has been caught in the wreckage, giving them every aid possible. Then passenger train wreck with the relief of the train, generally on hand to take care of the passenger and the train wreck. Cattle train wrecks, the member of the wrecking crew sometimes finds it necessary to end the pain of the animals being injured or burned. Replacing derailed equipment. After taking care of the living things for the next duty with the wrecking car to the clear light with the way to get damaged equipment conditioned to move in the shop of the repairs. If it has not already been done, the locomotive fires must be drawn with the steam relief. The locomotive tender is lightened by the removing the coal and drawing the water. Some tenders carry with the 14-ton coals, 9,000 gallons of water. Another reason for doing this is the shifting of the water would make the tank unstable crane load. With the removal of the coal and eliminates the chance of spreading it around in the hamper. The work, the weight of the locomotive and bulking precludes the possibility of lifting bodily and by one crane the value requires. Our figure 49 shows the bringing of the locomotive to the track. That is handled while the car is not increasing due to the damage. Generally, the locomotive is put in an upright position to roll onto its wheels. Planks and steel rails, flat steel pieces are placed under the wheels that require the locomotive to be well blocked and the wheels dug out as the wheels has been driven. Figure 50 shows the laying down on the job. It requires the locomotive to be blocked with the wheels dug out with the wheels has driven them into the earth, and then it is then drawn by the crane hoist and the degree of the track on which it is to be set. It is set on the track by the crane aided by the jackson blocking the wrecking frogs and etc. The heaviest part of the work of the replacing locomotive with occasion getting in the upright position, drawing it into the track of which to be placed, because of the load with the far out with the crane boom. When lifting of the weight of it, sometimes the greater with the crane tips even through its frame, locked and clamped with the rail with the outriggers in use. The outriggers are heavily structured beams that slide out from either the side of the crane frame under the blocking is placed into the preventing the crane from the tipping over the underload. And lifting the great loads, the outriggers are blocked up on one side of the chain and down on the track side of the opposite side. Figure 51 shows the double header of the two heavy bridges. Crane operation. The derrick engineer must know the capacity of his crane when lifting the different angles when loading the different places on the boom. The web. The wreck is not the place for the experiment. He must also be aware of the direction of the engine is running. If it is in reverse, and will make a movement of the loading opposite with the required endangerment of the members of the crew. The wreckers must know the tackle to apply the various parts of the locomotive with the correct manner with the steering it and properly apply with the tackle, which properly simple with the cause of the jerk of the loading with the hoist of the cable, perhaps breaking and damaging the tool, endangering the members of the crew. He must also know the tool appliance needed for every emergency and be able to get quickly. After getting the locomotive back on the track, they have repaired it to receive the crew, gives it, and the car is concerned in the wreck temporarily repairs needed to get back to the station. A roundhouse accident. All the wrecks of the wrecking crew are called upon with the straightening out do not occur with the railroad. Some of the night and the locomotive will find its way onto the roundhouse turntable pit. An incident is occurred with a short time ago with the Chicago roundhouse. The locomotive has head buried in the bottom of the pit, but its center and rear of the end were left on the track. The crane was brought so close to the edge of the pit as possible in order to reach the front end of the engine, but before the lift was made, the two members of the crew had crane outrigging out of the block, but the wreckman foreman said it would not be necessary. The men in the instant blocked the crane without ordinary orders. When the locomotive lifted, the turntable moved away, and from the loading of leaving the entire weight of the crane, the men watching the blocking saw outrigging bite into the solid oak at least an inch. If it had not been for the block, the locomotive and the crane would both have turned over into the pit, and this is one case where experienced wreckers saved thousands of dollars damage and probably the lives of two men. Figure 52 shows in mountainous terrains. Wrecks clearly click. The working of the clearing of the wreck is continuing with the stop under till the right of the way has been cleared. Strength and endurance are required with the current. Carry the jacks heavy blocking up the downward wreckage, rough ground. Wrecks often require from 24 to 48 hours continuous work to clear. The work is especially hazardous. Requires never under any prevailing high pitch of it. Excitement to set with the blocking under suspended loads when, if the cable should break, the wrecker would be crushed. The wrecker crew works all hours and in all weather conditions, and all wrecks are almost frequent in severe weather. Alright, care of shipments. The wrecking crew must be transferred the cargo from badly damaged, frequently valuable shipments are strewn out about the right-of-way, or on intelligence, continuous care of the wrecking crew depends on the great amount of the railroad liability for damages. Figure 53 shows an out of straight and narrow. Personal requirements. The number of the railroad officials, general inspectors are at the clearance of the wreck. The member of the wrecking crew must not allow the presence of the embarrassing them in the work. The members of the wrecking crew must accept the orders from the wrecking foreman. Only the wrecking foreman must not allow the variety with the suggestion for the spectators to slow up his work for the waiver of the decision. Good wrecking foremen are men of the type that are said to be born, not made for this position in life. The members of a wrecking crew hold the position which many of the men aspire to, but have the qualifications to hold. The romantic glamour of the service, attraction, brigadier requirements, delusion, and aspirations. Alright, Section D, the work of the crane and the hoist operator. Locomotive cranes in usually different railroad shops vary for the capacity of the 10 and 40 tons. The length of the boom is generally used from 35 to 40 feet. The construction work of the 45-foot boom is used. Locomotive cranes have vertical boilers in the sides to use and suit the crane capacity. The cranes have operated with the fire by one man. Must say it's to require him to have a license to get the which he must stand examination on his knowledge of steam boilers and crane operations. The crane is used by the most frequent to load and unload cars. Some of the equipment and material handled by these cranes with very heavy, making the lift of the crane must be clamped to the rails. Sometimes swinging outriggers are used. These cranes are used with the hoisting blocks, grabber buckets, drain line buckets, and lifting magnets. The use of lifting magnets requires the operator to have knowledge of the electrical generation apparatus. The travel speeds of the cranes is about 600 feet per minute. They are sometimes used to move the cars in short distances. The operator of the crane must use care in lifting and letting down the heavy loads and carrying them up. Must see that does not strike against the car. Other obstructions in line with the travel. There's always danger and sometimes with the crane, but the careless and inexperienced operator will in changing clutches to allow the boom and load to fall with probable injury to anyone underneath the damaged load in the crane. The crane operator supervises the responsibility of the attachment, lifting, tackle, and load, which work is generally done by a helper. General 5, General Shop Work. General Shop Work, Part 5.